All right. If it isn't the guys who recommended Quinn Huff, who wrecked out on lap number one, we are back and we're going to give you guys some more stellar advice. This time we're talking about the NASCAR Cup Series. They're doing a doubleheader race at Pocono. So if you didn't know, Pocono is a doubleheader race weekend where they're going to do one race on Saturday and then they're going to use those same cars again and race on Sunday unless they get approval to basically go to a backup car. This race, the formula is how they're setting qualifying, like their starting grid. And then for the second race, the top 20 finishers will be inverted. So whoever finishes first will start 20th. And then I think they're just going to use the formula again for drivers 21st on back to 40th. So this is almost like practice really for the second race. Like for the second Pocono race, you should really have a good understanding of who's good and who isn't. And we'll do another breakdown video for that one. But this one specifically, we're just going to be talking about the first race. So if you watched our truck video and our Xfinity video, if you haven't, they're live up on our channel right now. But Pocono isn't really a ton of laps. It's the Cup Series is 130, which is more than the trucks and Xfinity, obviously, but still not a ton in the grand scheme of things. So really want to put more of an emphasis on place differential this weekend. They're running the 550 horsepower package, so low horsepower, high downforce. So it's opposite from the package they just ran last weekend at Nashville. This race is going to have some more unknowns to it just because, like I said, the second race is basically a repeat of the first one where everyone will see who's good and who isn't. So I think the first race is an opportunity for you to maybe play a little bit more of these kind of GPP only risky type of plays that maybe will potentially be low owned. And then Pocono is really a unique track too. It's really hard to compare it to other tracks on their circuit, but we really just want to focus on drivers who have been fast all year long. So I guess we'll start with you, Coop. When you're talking about fast drivers you want to slam in your line, who are the top plays that you want to make sure no matter what are getting into that lineup?
If you say fast driver and Kyle Larson isn't the next name out of your mouth, you're not right. He's been flying. He takes over the race early and he doesn't give up. He doesn't give up first for the majority of the race. If he loses it because of pits or cycling or whatever, give him a couple laps and he's leading again. It's unbelievable what he's been able to put the string of races he's been able to put together recently. He starts on the pole and he'll likely finish on the pole. So love Kyle Larson. Not much downside unless he wrecks. I don't see him or has an issue or something. It's not like he's just going to start dropping. He's been too fast and had too good of a car all year. With that being said, Chase Elliott, his teammate, is starting 29th. Not somewhere you're used to seeing Chase Elliott start. Ton of PD upside there, and he's just going to be working his way through the field. How quickly he does that, I don't know, but by the end of the race, he'll be up at the top there. So another great opportunity for you to plug in Chase and score a lot of points. Ryan Blaney's a similar situation. He's starting way back there too. And I think he and his buddy Chase will be driving together up to the front. So that'll be fun to plug them in if you can make the salary work and get one or both of them. It'll be fun watching them drive through the field. Truax is a great GPP play, I think. If something happens where Larson does go down with an issue and the field's wide open for somebody to take that dominator role and win the race, Truax is one of the drivers that I would slot into that role. I could see him moving up from 15th. He offers you a little PD, and if something does happen to Larson, he's one of those drivers that's raced really well this year and could pay off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think much more needs to be said about Kyle Larson. I mean, he's the best driver this year, without doubt. Again, so we'll move down. We'll just go right into Chase. Starts 29th. I think everybody knows Chase is good. He's driving Hendrick Motorsports. They've been the team to beat this year. Starting 29th. Offers a lot of PD. Everyone's going to know that. I think his ownership's going to be inflated. Probably the second or third highest owner driver behind Larson. So someone if you're going to go with two guys in this 10K range, which might be hard if you're playing Larson, I'd probably say Blaney starting 27th. Same as Elliot, offers you a bunch of PD upside, but he's going to should come in lower owned, maybe significantly lower owned compared to Elliot, because everyone's going to be flocking to Elliot because he's Hendricks Motorsports. And then I'll touch on Truax real fast or quick. Starting 15th, offers you some PD, but Martin Truax this year has been the definition of inconsistent. He's either going to go out there and he's just going to dominate the race, or he's going to go out there and they're going to be way off on their setup. And he's the only time you're going to hear them talking about them is them telling you, oh, we haven't talked about Martin Truex all day. And he's going to run middle pack right around 15th. And so it's a little bit of a gamble there. But if you're running more than one line, I wouldn't be afraid of it, because if they nail that setup, I mean, he could come in low owned and, make money for you.
I agree with everything you guys said. Obviously, the Hendrick Motorsports guys are probably the best plays in this range, along with Ryan Blaney offering the place differential. I will touch on Kyle Busch, though. Most weeks when we have practice, Kyle Busch is a good play. Well, as Andrew said at the beginning of the video, this is kind of a practice for the second race, and that's kind of what I think Kyle Busch is going to use this race as. He may still finish top 5. I would rather wait and play him in the second Pocono race than I would play him in this first race. But if we move on down here to the 9K range, I like Denny Hamlin starting 10th there. He's been consistent all year. Larson's catching him in the point standings right now, so he's got to pick it up. Still hasn't gotten a win yet this year. That could definitely happen this week. He offers a few place differential points, and we know he has the top 5, top 3 upside. And then Brad Keselowski starting 18th. This team just, I don't know if it's the move to Roush Fenway or whatever. This team just hasn't been the same since that announcement came out, and I really want to see more from Brad K before I get back on him and start playing him, especially at $9,500 this week. And then William Byron. He's been great all year, and he's arguably been one of the guys, or one of Larson's biggest competitors week to week. He's been running comparable lap times to him almost every single race. He's starting second, so that kind of hurts, kind of limits his upside unless Larson has an issue or something. So, again, he may be better geared for the second race as well, where he'll be starting probably in the back half of the top 20.
Yeah, we went from a year where Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick dominated to neither of them winning a race yet. Denny's raced well all year. Really like Denny. It's just a matter of time till he gets that win. But first, Larson's got to cool off. But he's been driving really, really well, about as good as you can ask a driver to do when there's just certain races that the Hendricks equipment has seemed to outshine the other equipment in the field. Brad Keselowski, I agree, he's just been a little shaky, but he does offer PD upside. So if Brad puts in a good race, might be a good low on GPP play. And then I'd like to talk about both Kevin Harvick and William Byron here. Harvick's been getting better and better as the season's going on. And Stewart-Haas actually had a good race last week. Almirola turned in a good finish, and Harvick turned in a good finish. And Briscoe was racing really well until he had his issue. And I think Custer had a similar issue, but earlier in the race. But Stewart-Haas did have a good race last week. So it'll be interesting to see what they can put together as a team this week and see if they can continue to build and turn in some better results, because as a whole, that team has been disappointing this year. And then William Byron starting second. I don't mind playing Byron, even though I don't necessarily expect him to lead any laps, because I think he can easily just run up there with Larson the whole time and it just be Byron and Larson by way far ahead of the competition. So even though I don't expect him to dominate, and he is starting in second, doesn't offer you any place differential points, I think Byron is going to be running right along with Larson all day and could place second right where he starts and turn in a good race.
Yeah, I think getting as many Hendrick cars in your lineup is never a bad thing, even if it is like Coop was saying, like, yeah, Byron starts second and then that might get some people off of him, but he should literally, he should just run there the entire race. And if you're in that top 5, that's the range where you're picking up those fast laps. And you have the potential to maybe pass Larson if Larson has an issue or misses on the setup a little bit. Rudy Fugle is the crew chief of the 24 car, and they worked together back when they were in the truck series together. And high downforce packages are where I think Redick really accelerates at. So we've seen William Byron perform really well this year. I think it is because of the new crew chief there. And then the other guy I love Hamlin this week. I think Pocono statistically is one of his best tracks. He hasn't won. He hasn't got the same amount of attention as Larson and the Hendrick drivers as a whole, but he still is ahead of Larson in the point standings. It's not by a wide margin, but still, like, to sit here and say that someone has more points than Kyle Larson would be hard to believe. And Denny Hamlin is that guy, and at $9,700, he's an easy guy that you compare with some of those top price guys. And then moving on down to the 8K range, I love Alex Bowman, another Hendrick driver, $8,600, starts 13th, has the potential to win this race with how fast Hendrick is, and he has some place differential points baked in. And then Chris Buescher, I think this is probably the most expensive Chris Buescher has ever been, probably in his lifetime. But it's good to see because he has been performing well, and he starts 25th, and he does really well in this 550 package. So he should finish 12th if everything kind of goes his way. And it is a expensive price to pay, but you got to look at the PD upside and the finishing potential upside. So I like Buescher a lot there. But what about you, Kev? Who do you like in the 8K range here?
Yeah, I think Bowman's probably my favorite out of this group. Like I think we've mentioned earlier in this podcast already. I think, or at least me personally, I try to get 2 Hendricks drivers every week. Larson pretty much being one of them. I think Bowman's going to be my guy this week to be number 2. It's weird to say that Alex Bowman's probably the worst out of the 400 drivers this year, considering he's won 2 races. But I mean, just seems to be how it's going. But he's also the cheapest this week, offers you PD upside, and there's no reason he shouldn't finish top 5 and compete for this, or have a chance to compete for the win today. So I think you might be able to catch him at lower ownership just because he keeps getting. It just kind of seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and just gets shuffled back or gets wrecked out. So I mean, I like him this week as my second Hendricks driver, and then Chris Buescher. I mean, this man's won here before. Well, probably a little bit higher than him than I should be, or you guys might be, just because he's just one of my favorite drivers in the series. But he's won here before. He knows how to race here. He's just been kicking ass all year. Starts 25th. I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't get at least the top 20, probably top 15. And I mean, he's surprised us all year. He could run top 5 all day and just crush for you at 8K.
Fully agree. Bowman and Buescher are my 2 picks out of this range. And I don't know, Kev. I might be as high on Buescher as you are, because as much as I love Bowman, I may even be a little higher on Buescher. I think if they were the same price, it'd be 50-50. So I'm going to go with the cheaper driver probably and go Buescher. And if I end up in this range, because I do like a lot of the really high priced drivers too, and I like plugging those guys into my line. But if I find myself in this range, Bowman and Buescher are by far and away the 2 favorites.
Yeah, I don't think there's really much else to say about those guys. They're definitely the top players in that range. I will say something about Christopher Bell. He's run really well this year, but starting ninth is, just a little bit too high to make him worth it. He can finish top 10 in this car. He's definitely more of a GPP play this week, though. And I would probably stick to large fields if you're going to play Christopher Bell. If we move on down here to the 7K range, Tyler Redick starting 16th. He's raced really well this year. He has top 10 upside. Might be a stretch to get a top 10, top 11, top 12 would probably be better. And I think that would still be enough to pay off the price tag. And then I love Matt DiBenedetto starting 21st. He tends to run well at the quote unquote bigger tracks where you have to have some speed, because he's, like the 5th Penske car. So I have no problems with him starting 21st. He should be able to fight for a top 15 by the end of this race.
Yeah, for me, I think Austin Dillon's interesting as a GPP only play. It seems like every week he always starts like 12th or 11th. And I think people are hesitant to play him because of that. But if you look at his finishes, he always finishes right around that range. So again, if you're playing those top price guys, it comes down to, finishing potential or place differential. Austin Dillon doesn't really have the place differential upside, but he has the finishing potential upside. RCR gets their engines from Hendrick. So I think Hendrick's dominance right now is carrying over to this RCR team. So I love Redick. I like Dillon. And then we saw the 21 car win. I know it was 4 years ago, I think, at this point now, with Ryan Blaney's rookie year in the 21 car. That was the last time that the Wood brothers have won. So it'd be pretty cool to see Matt DiBenedetto squeak out a win and get Wood brothers 100th victory. But there's not really one driver here I like more than the others. I just think if you're playing multiple lines, you want to get to DiBenedetto, you want to get to Dillon, you want to get to Redick. I'm not that high on Almirola though.
I'm probably a little higher on DiBenedetto than the other two, just because he offers a little more place differential and he offers a little more salary relief. But I'm fine with Redick, and I like Redick and Dillon as GPP plays this week, and DiBenedetto I like in just about any line. And moving down, I really like Chase Briscoe this week. I mentioned earlier he was running really well last week. He looked fast, and starting 28th, it's a little deeper than he's started before, and he should finish higher than that. So $6,900, happy to plug in Chase Briscoe in my line. And then Cole Custer is another Stewart-Haas driver that has his price has been going down consistently. He hasn't been really performing great this year. He's gotten unlucky a lot. And, last week his car basically just fell apart on him. It wasn't his fault. And I think that a big bounce back for Stewart-Haas, particularly Briscoe and Custer, would be refreshing to see Stewart-Haas really get the setup right again and then have their drivers pull through. So I like those two. And Ryan Preece is another driver in this range, in the 6K range, that I really like. Starting 31st, it's a little further back than we've seen him start in most of the races. And I think that he can fight for a top 20 and pay off that $6,200 price tag too. That's pretty cheap for what Ryan Preece could give you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Coop. I like Briscoe and Custer. If I had to pick, I'd probably go Custer. I think, they're pretty even in my mind, but he does come in $600 cheaper. So if you're still looking for a little salary relief, I'll go that way. But, I'm kind of indifferent either way. Briscoe offers a little more PD. So if you have the salary and you want to pay up for that potential PD, I'm not opposed to that. Like you said, Ryan Preece, starting 31st. Finally, we get Preece at like a decent price point where he's actually like a true value play, starting in a true value spot where you obviously a bunch of PD. It's running the truck, so he'll have a little more experience. Some of these other guys around him coming into this race. So like Coop said, I don't really, I could see him getting in the top 20, but even top 25 at $6,200 is going to look pretty good for you. And then another guy I'll just mention real quick is Eric Jones. Haven't really mentioned him this year too much this year, but he's racing pretty well in this 43 car. He's not super competitive, but he's not running back in the pack. He's kind of running right in that middle of the pack and starting 22nd at $6,400. If he does what he just seems to do, gets you, or, right around that 16, 17, maybe even 15th spot, should pay off this week, offer you some PD, and, comes in pretty cheap and could come in pretty owned because he's kind of just like a forgotten driver this year.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed all the value plays here in the 6K range. I probably like Preece a little bit more than most people just because of where he's starting and his price. We've seen him have some really good runs this year, and have no problems starting 31st. He's got top 20 upside. Top 20 might be a little bit on the higher end of his upside, but he can definitely get there. But if we move on down here into the below the 6K range, Ryan Newman starting 19th. I think this might be the cheapest Newman's been all year, but it just seems like the 19th starting position kind of limits his upside a little bit. Yeah, he can get a 15th place finish, but it's more likely he just runs around there at the 19th, 20th position, and that's where he ends up finishing, which would make him a horrible play for the second Pocono race because he'd be starting on the pole. So, I mean, I might have him in one line this week, but if I'm going to go below 6K, I'm probably going to punt to Quinn Howell for Timmy Hill. And out of those two, I would go with Timmy Hill just because he starts dead last.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why DraftKings priced Ryan Newman at $5,800, and then especially they priced Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie above Newman. I don't understand that. Like, yeah, he starts 19th, but he's in the same equipment as Chris Buescher. And we've seen both the Roush cars run well, mainly in the 550 package that they're running at Pocono. And that's another thing too that concerns me slightly with some of the Stewart-Haas drivers. With Briscoe and Custer, I still like them as plays because of all the place differential that they have. We've seen that 550 package is just not up to par with all the other teams, whereas their 750 package seems to do a lot better, the one that they were running at Nashville last week. But again, I know Quinn Huff burned people last week, myself included. I think I was 100% on Quinn Huff, but he can't lose you any points. And it allows you to get Kyle Larson. It allows you to get Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, those top tier plays that you're just banking on them doing well. And if Huff can just clock off laps, same with Timmy Hill, if they can just survive mechanically, they're going to work out, because every time a driver wrecks, they're going to move forward. It's hard to see them finishing any higher than like 30th, but that's really all you need from these drivers starting this deep, especially if you nail the lap leader and you get those really attractive place differential plays. But with that being said, I'm really going to try my hardest this week not to go below Newman.
Yeah, I just touched too. I mean, Huff burned me last week as well, but it wasn't really Huff because, like you said, he couldn't lose points. He still finished with 2 points. And if Custer wouldn't have wrecked out there, kind of later in the race, I was still on track to cash, even with him wrecking out. So, I mean, these guys that are starting dead last, yeah, it's a big risk, but I mean, they literally cannot lose you points. So it doesn't actually kill your line as long as the rest of your line kills it. And if you're going with one of them, you're paying up for some of those higher guys. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. That being said, I would try to avoid it if you can, but just last week, my build led me that way, but don't be afraid of it. But, that being said, I'm going to try to avoid it if I can.
Famous last words where I had 100% exposure to Huff.
Yep.
Yeah.
First lap of the race, he's out.
Didn't even make it a lap.
Those guys, yeah, they won't kill your line, but I'd be real surprised if they actually helped your line. If you're going that low, you got to feel real good about your other 5 drivers that they're going to really turn in a great race, and then somebody's just going to be a pure attrition play and give you, I don't know, 15 points, whatever they can get you. I'm not a fan of punting that low. I'd rather stay up in the Newman. Another driver we didn't touch on was Michael Mcdowell. I think he's another driver that will see ownership. 5,600 is probably as cheap as we've seen Michael Mcdowell this year as well. Really cooled off from the super hot start that he had this year, but starting 17th, he can run around and get you, a couple places inside the top 15, maybe, if he has a good race too. So don't mind going either Newman or McDowell, but personally, if you're going down to Huff or Hill, you better feel really good about the rest of your line.
All right, well, that's going to do it for race number 1 for the Cup Series at Pocono. Once they go across the finish line on Saturday, and once the grid comes out for the race on Sunday, we'll be putting out another video breaking down those thoughts. But it should basically be pretty straightforward. Play the guys that did well, especially because if Kyle Larson wins the first race, he'll start 20th on the second one. So then he's the favorite to win, and he has place differential. But we will explain that once we get to it. But that'll do it. As always, like, subscribe, questions, comments down below. We'll make sure we get back to you guys. And thank you as always. Good luck.